Here's our timetable. I think it's aggressive, but also realistic. Parish presentations, what we're doing today. I want to stress, we are not final with the project. We're 80 to 90% final. I think we have enough to be going. We want people's input. Pastoral Council approval in December. Move forward with this project. To the diocese for approval and another parish update in January after the first of the year. So we're about, well, here's kind of where we settled. Here's what it's looking like the project's really going to be. Actually, I think I got an email from Father Rose saying last week, or this week, the diocese, I guess, approved the project. I think we have to submit some paperwork still, but they did give us an approval to proceed. Not sure exactly what that means because it was just email correspondence right now. But we've been feeding them information as we've been going along. So we may already have part of that done in terms of our checklist. We need to work with our consultants, architect. I also have to give a lot of praise to Vince Menino, who's done a lot of cost estimating for us. Really appreciative of that. Very good numbers. To finalize our project scope and estimates over the next 2 months. And then, hopefully, do a capital campaign that would run from February to May. And then we would need, once we get that capital campaign and see how it is, hopefully it's $2.5 million. It'd be nice if it was 2.8. Hope it's not 2.1. We would get firm bids and construction loan in June of next year. And the banks would need those bids and firm bids and appraisal and all those kind of things at that point. Groundbreaking in June, project completion by January, which is about 14 months from now. If all goes well, kids can move into this space in the second semester of that year. So that's kind of our timetable. What I'd like to do now, I'm going to ask people have questions, be happy to field them. And also, I would direct people to really take a look at these 3 plans. We put post-it notes over there and pens, and if you have comments on them, just write them on them and stick them on the boards, okay? And we'll take them and factor them in our decision making. And it really gives you an idea where we started, where we went. That really didn't meet with our budget, where we're at. We're going to have to, but the key part of this is we can't shortchange ourselves on the square footage of the new construction. I think that's the worst thing we can do. We may have to give and take on some renovation work, okay? But I'd really be interested in y'all's input when you do that. I'll stop there. People have any questions? Be happy to answer them.
Gotcha.
Does this project have any changes in parking and or playground? No plans to touch anything in terms of the playground. The parking, the only thing that would happen to the parking is when the modular buildings are removed, we have to patch and repair the parking services, and those then become opened up for parking also. So you have actually a couple of big spaces that you get more parking out of. But in terms of nothing else in parking. Other questions?
And is this going to go from preschool through 8th grade?
Well, I want to repeat Jen's question for the video too. Was there any consideration about the drop-off for the parents and the school buses? And right now, the answer is no, we hadn't addressed it. But it depends on, like Lisa said, what goes in the building. The strong desire is to get everybody inside the building. As I said in the beginning, one of the things I talked about in the 2 previous presentations, we had some priorities, modular buildings, etc. I think that's kind of surfaced as another priority as we put forward in this, getting everyone in one building, and we're certainly going to do our best to do that. The question is, they know we own the house next door, what about the one in the corner? We don't own that. We're not factoring that into our project planning right now. If that ever becomes available, we'd be happy to talk to them. When you said all the kids in one building, does that include the preschool? The answer is yes, that's an important priority. Okay, now, again, we're going to have some give and take on this. For example, some of the renovation work that we did on the backside here that was in this or not in this. The ability to, but the one thing I want to stress is we cannot shortchange ourselves on building new square footage in this project. Because you only have one chance to build new square footage. You have multiple opportunities to do renovation, for example. You can do that in a couple of years. Okay? Yes?
You said there were three renditions criteria.
Yeah.
So the third one means that it's the most updated? That means like the one that's the latest? Is that right? Or are they all?
I wouldn't characterize it that way.
Okay.
There's 3 versions of the same concept, okay? That's all they are. I wouldn't say one's more preferred over the other. For example, parish meeting space. How big, how little? Hasn't been decided. The buildings that house the other things like preschool now, the homes, any thought about what we do with those? You know, honestly, no, there hasn't been a lot of discussion about it. They lend themselves to being used for office space and things like that. They really don't lend themselves for much else, quite honestly.
We also lose the quilting house.
Oh, good point.
That will move over to one of those houses too. So
yeah. The question is what happened to the property, the 27 acres, or what's going to happen to it. And the committee thought process right now is we're going to hang on to it right now. We're just going to keep it the way it is right now for a couple of reasons. One is the vision or idea of sometime ever getting to a new school. We don't want to abandon that. And number two, it's really not a seller's market, so there's no reason. And we think we can do this project with keeping that land.
And the third point to that is the diocese really wants us to keep it.
Point. Yep. Other questions?
What about the modular buildings? Are you going to take those down?
Yes, those would get sold or do whatever. And the way this would work is you would, if I'm remembering this right, Bob, you would have to do a partition here, do the new construction, okay? Move into that, come back in and do any renovation you got to do here, take down the partition, then move the people from the modular building into the space. So there's kind of a three-phase construction process that would have to go. Other questions? Yeah.
Mike, it appears that the 5 years is driving some of the decision-making in terms of what's in and what's out. If that were extrapolated to 7 or 10, is that a possibility? What happens? Is that possible?
It's not really the 5 years. It's the amount that the capital campaign comes into, because all you're doing if you're extending that is extending what you're paying it off and how much it's going to cost you to pay it off.
Yeah.
And we're amortizing it over 20 years, so we're not going to be stuck to say that you have to pay it in 5 years. So if it had to be extended, it could be. But what we're trying to do is have the project pay for itself as quickly as possible, so that it doesn't cost us more than 2.8.
I'm going to repeat the question also. The question is that it appeared that the 5 years is sort of driving the size and scope of the project. Could we have a longer capital campaign? And I think there's a couple of answers to that. Number one is we paid money to a consultant to give us a report about how much we thought we could raise. So all we're doing there, Tom, is taking what our consultant and our expert said, this is what we think we can do, and factor it on our decision making. I think that's an important point. The second point is, the bigger the project, the bigger amount of cash we have to have on hand to start the project also. So the longer time frame to raise that cash. And then number three, I think, is you're absolutely right in this regard. Let's say we got this amount of money and we got this amount of project. This is bigger than this amount of money. We're going to have to go back and revisit both sides, the revenue side or the expense side. How are we going to get more money? If we really want to do this as a parish, how are we going to get more money? 2 capital campaigns over 8 years. I don't know. We're going to have to revisit that. But right now, the thinking is we want to be able to do this so that we can get started quickly, which drives how much cash we got on hand to get started quickly, and then we can get it done in one capital campaign. Those are the operating assumptions going forward. The question is how much square footage are we adding? And it's in that range of 11 to 13,000 square feet. Okay, and it would go, if you go out here and you got to see the overhang as you walk out of the doorways here, it takes you pretty much to the end of the overhang. You put the addition there. The front takes you into the sidewalk pretty fair amount towards the street.
Most of it's to that way.
Yeah. The question was beyond the science lab, is there any other technology enhancements? And the answer is no. But what I will say is we really haven't spent a lot of time talking about that either. We have in our project budget Over $100,000 dedicated to IT and phone and data, okay? Because we're gonna have to do that. And we also have, I think about $150,000, if I remember right, in terms of furnishings and equipment, because we know we're gonna need that. That has not been identified or fine-tuned.
Thank you, Mike, and I thank you and the committee for trying to get our preschool into the building. And with the change that we are going through, it's, at one time, I always wanted to have our building separate. It was fun. But now with the changes that we're going through, I think it's important that we get it in. So we thank you.
Understand. Question, Judy thinks it's important that we have the preschool into the building.
Is this going to affect the school year at all? We all just saw what happened at Waterloo, and
It very well could.
Yes. Yes. We had brief discussions about that right now, and if we really do want to start in June, and it really depends as you get that 7 months construction schedule more fine-tuned, there may be a delay possibly, and please don't walk out here saying we're delaying school next year. There may be some period of time where we might delay school next year. It all depends on what the schedule is, and we don't know that
or
yet.
like maybe around Christmas when we're
Actually, more the start of the school year.
More at the start.
The important, because you really, and again, it gets to the phasing of the project and things like that.
Your information says the project will be completed in January of 2012. Why would that affect the start of the school year versus January of 2012? You're not following that timeline on that. I don't care, I'm just saying it doesn't jive.
Actually, it does. Bob can fill you in.
Repeat it. If we can, the question is the timing does not jive as presented. We're very optimistic. Could it affect the school year? Yeah, it depends on what the final answer is. So that, you know, it could and it could not. If we get the information, we get the funds, and depending on what the overall project scope is, one of the possibilities would be starting school, you know, a little later, giving us, in a perfect world, would give us a couple of weeks.
Tim, it doesn't
to do the transition.
It doesn't affect the end in January 2012. What it really affects is August 2011. If we start in June 2011 and we kind of rock and roll on either a renovation or an expansion, and we may have to delay school 2 weeks or so there to get what we want to get done in the summer when no one's here, and then get kids back in, that's really where the effect comes.
If we can take advantage of next summer, we can get in June or in January. If we don't start till the end of July, then obviously that's not going to happen. We need to take advantage of the full summer.
All right, I'm going to put my sales pitch in here now. As you can see, I think the timing is right to do this. We have momentum on our side. I think we got a project that's reasonable and doable and achievable in a reasonable period of time. The construction industry and bid environment couldn't be any better. The interest rate environment couldn't be any better right now. And so after the first of the year, we hope to be making the commitment and going on a capital campaign. And so I think the timing is right. If we don't do this, and please don't take this the wrong way, I'm not sure what we're going to do except buy new modular buildings to replace the ones that are falling apart. So that's kind of where we are. And I would encourage everybody to look at the plans and look at them in detail, write notes, stick them on there, and I appreciate your interest, and any other questions, just catch Brad or I after.